Al has over 25 years of experience in the delivery of engineering and construction projects and the management of maintenance and construction businesses in the energy, resources and infrastructure sectors throughout Australia, the Middle East and Southeast Asia for Clough, UGL, Ventia and Worley. I'll now invite Al to take you through some further maintenance highlights for the year.
Thanks, Aaron, and good morning, everyone. In the energy sector, we were awarded both available 2-year extensions to our long-term offshore maintenance services contract with INPEX, supporting the Ichthys LNG project. The scope of work includes operational, campaign and shutdown maintenance services and brownfield projects implementation. We've also recently secured a variation to this contract to provide similar services at the INPEX-operated Ichthys LNG onshore processing facilities at Bladen Point in Darwin. This is a testament to the strength of our relationship with INPEX and the delivery of quality outcomes at Ichthys LNG over the past 10 years, dating back to when we played a significant role during the construction phase of the project. We continue to grow our relationship with Fortescue during the year and were awarded a number of significant new contracts, including a 5-year contract to provide maintenance, general shutdown services and minor project works across their Pilbara operations. We were also appointed to a panel for non-process infrastructure services for a term of 3 years, which has already brought significant scope, or many scopes of work our way, including the refurbishment of about 350 rooms at Solomon Castle Accommodation Camp. Strategically, non-process infrastructure presents a big opportunity and an area of growth for Monadelphous as our customers continue to invest in new and expanded mine sites and associated facilities. As Rob mentioned, in June of this year, we acquired Victorian-based specialist electrical and maintenance service provider BMC. BMC provides services to major industry and key utilities throughout Australia, employs around 180 people, and generates approximately $60 million of revenue per annum. This strategic acquisition enabled us to develop a presence in the East Coast energy generation, transmission and storage market and expand our footprint in the growing offshore oil and gas decommissioning sector, particularly into the Bass Strait. Among a number of contracts secured with Rio Tinto's iron ore operations in West Australia's Pilbara region earlier this year was a scope of work associated with the replacement of an overland conveyor belt at the Western Turner Sinclair mine. On the screen, you'll see a video of the project where we hear from the team.
One of our more recent projects is to replace the belt on CV2104 out at Western Syncline. This belt is roughly 13 kilometres long.
The Western Turner circuit was built by Monadelphous back in 2014, and around 18 months ago we installed the belt turning structures that help with the belt flake and the belt replacement for 2104.
Yeah, since this project kicked off, the safety record's been quite impeccable. Be safe because you want to be, not because you have to be. And I think we get that here at Monadelphous.
We have developed a really good relationship with Rio Tinto in the region. We have good relationships with all the project leads, both in the maintenance and sustaining capital space, and it does make it a lot easier to deliver projects well when we have those relationships in place.
As you heard, the Western Turner Syncline circuit was built by Monadelphous in 2014, and at 13 kilometres long is Rio Tinto's longest single flight conveyor. The belt replacement was the first of its kind for our maintenance team, and despite tight turnarounds, the overall performance was very strong. I'll now pass you back to Zoran to present our industry outlook.
Thanks, Al. This slide shows relevant current and forecast Australian market conditions for our business. As you can see, the sectors in which we operate have a positive outlook for capital investment and operating expenditure over the next few years. Now to the outlook slide. Longer-term demand forecasts remain strong across commodity markets despite some global economic uncertainty. The resources and energy sectors are providing a significant pipeline of prospects across a broad range of commodities, with expenditure related to decarbonisation representing an increasingly larger proportion of investment activity. Production across most commodities is forecast to remain at current levels or higher, supporting continued sustaining capital and maintenance spend. Levels of mining and mineral processing development in the energy transition metals sector are high, and investment to sustain iron ore production levels will continue over coming years. In the energy sector, there are several new gas construction projects currently in the development pipeline, and strong demand for maintenance services remains, with decommissioning prospects expected to grow over coming years. The development of the hydrogen market will also provide opportunities. Maintenance activity levels in the resources sector are forecast to remain high, with new mining developments and expansions moving into the operating phase. Accelerating decarbonisation efforts in Australia's power sector are driving an expanding pipeline of renewable energy projects, including a large number of new wind farms and battery energy storage projects. Zenviron remains well placed to capitalise on the growth expected in this sector over coming years and is currently engaged on early works packages for several new wind and battery energy storage projects. The shortage of skilled labour in Australia continues to be a challenge, and we remain focused on our employee attraction, training and development initiatives to ensure Monadelphous remains a great place to work. With the new wave of major construction activity underway, we have secured over $600 million of new projects, bringing the total of contracts awarded post-year end to approximately $1.1 billion. At this stage, we are anticipating an increase in group revenue for the first half of around 5% compared to the prior corresponding period. Full year revenue for the group will be dependent on the ramp-up of new construction projects, and at this stage, group revenue for the second half is expected to be similar to the first half. With capacity constrained, we will continue to leverage our strong position and take a strategic and targeted approach to new work, engaging and collaborating early with customers, maintaining an appropriate approach to the allocation of risk, and focusing on earnings quality. Supported by a strong balance sheet, we will continue to assess potential acquisition opportunities to facilitate service expansion, market diversification, and long-term sustainable growth. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our fantastic employees for another solid year. We have a very loyal and talented team at Monadelphous who are committed to helping the company continue to grow and prosper. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend my appreciation to our shareholders, customers, and other stakeholders for their ongoing support. Finally, Ci manchi Giovanni, la tua eredità vivrà a lungo. We miss you, John. Your legacy will live long. I'll now hand back to Phil to complete the formal proceedings for the day.
Thank you, Zoran. Well done. So as mentioned previously, if you're online and have a question, please select the Q&A icon and type your question in the question box. If you're online and want to ask a question verbally, please follow the instructions written below the broadcast on the online platform. And for those of you in the room, I ask that all questions be held until the Q&A section after all resolutions have been introduced. Now, today's resolutions will be voted on via a poll, which will be conducted after all the items of business have been tabled and discussed. I'll provide some guidance to the people in the room about the poll prior to commencing, and there will be assistance available to shareholders who have queries. And then we'll tally the results of the meeting and announce them on the ASX later today. So as at the proxy close date, we'd received valid proxies representing around 61 million shares, or 63% of the issued share capital of about 97 million shares. And we'll show the manner in which the proxies are to vote on the screen before each resolution is voted on. Where a proxy has been directed to the Chair without a specific voting instruction, the Chair will vote in favour of each resolution, except where a voting exclusion applies. Now, the minutes of last year's AGM have been signed and a copy is available for inspection, and if you'd like to view the minutes, please speak to me after we finish the meeting. So we've got 5 items of business to consider at today's meeting, and they're set out in the notice of AGM and accompanying explanatory memorandum, which were released to the ASX and is available to shareholders on our website. And unless anyone objects, I will take that notice as read. The 2023 annual report contains the financial statements of the company and the reports of the director and the auditor for the financial year ended 30 June 2023. Now, no resolution is required. However, if shareholders would like to raise any questions or comments with either Pierre Dreyer from Ernst & Young or with the board regarding the financial statements and reports, for those online, please type in your questions now, and for those in the room, we will address questions during the Q&A section. So we'll now consider the formal items of business. And the first item of business is Resolution 1 to re-elect a director, Mr. Rob Velletri, who retires by rotation in accordance with the company's constitution and being eligible offers himself for re-election. Now, Rob was appointed to the board in August 1992 and commenced as managing director in 2003, holding the role for 19 years before being appointed as chair in November last year. He's a mechanical engineer with 44 years of experience in the construction and engineering services industry. And the board, with the exception of Mr. Velletri, who abstained, unanimously recommends that shareholders vote in favour of his re-election, having taken into account Rob's skills, experience and knowledge of the industry and the company, his past performance, commitment and dedication, and the significant and valuable contribution he has made and continues to make to Monadelphous. The proxies received in relation to Resolution 1 are displayed on the screen, and as previously mentioned, we'll conduct the poll after all resolutions have been discussed. The second item of business is Resolution 2 to re-elect a director, Ms. Helen Gillies, who retires by rotation in accordance with the company's constitution and being eligible offers herself for re-election. Now, Helen was appointed to the board in September 2016 and has been chair of the Audit Committee since September 2020. She is a solicitor with a strong background in law, risk, governance and finance, as well as extensive experience in mergers and acquisitions. And she has 27 years of experience in the construction and engineering services industry. Now, the board, with the exception of Ms. Gillies, who abstained, unanimously recommends that shareholders vote in favour of her re-election, noting the valuable contribution Helen makes to the mix of skills required by the board, her past performance, her commitment and dedication, and the current and future needs of the company. And the proxies received in relation to Resolution 2 are displayed. The third item of business is Resolution 3 to re-elect a director, Mr. Zoran Bebic, who retires in accordance with the company's constitution and being eligible offers himself for re-election. Now, Zoran was appointed to the board in November last year. He has held a broad range of operational, financial and management roles at Monadelphous over a 30-year career with the company, including Chief Financial Officer and, as Rob mentioned, Executive General Manager of the company's maintenance division. And he is a Fellow of CPA Australia. And the board, with the exception of Mr. Bebic, who abstained, unanimously recommends that shareholders vote in favour of his re-election, having taken into account Zoran's skills, experience and knowledge of both the industry and of Monadelphous, his unwavering commitment and dedication to the company, and the significant and valuable contribution he has made and continues to make to Monadelphous. And the proxies received in relation to this resolution are displayed on the screen. The fourth item of business is Resolution 4, granting of performance rights to the company's Managing Director, Zoran Bebic. And it's proposed that Mr. Bebic or his nominee be issued with 17,885 performance rights under the Monadelphous Group Limited Combined Reward Plan. And the key terms of the performance rights are contained in the notice of meeting. Now, voting exclusions apply to this resolution, and the details thereof are set out in the notice of the meeting. And the board, again with the exception of Mr. Bebic, who abstained, acknowledges the outstanding contribution that Zoran has made and will continue to make to the company, and therefore unanimously recommends shareholders vote in favour of this resolution. And the proxies received in relation to this resolution are again displayed behind me here on the screen. And the last item of business for today is Resolution 5, which is the adoption of the remuneration report, which is contained in the Director's report to shareholders. Now, the vote on this resolution is advisory only and will not bind the directors or the company. However, the board will take the outcome of the vote into consideration when reviewing remuneration practices and policies. Voting exclusions again apply to this resolution, and these are set out in the notice of meeting. And the board recommends that shareholders vote in favour of the adoption of the remuneration report. And the proxies received in relation to this resolution, Resolution 5, are displayed behind me. Now, before we move to the poll, as mentioned, we'll now open the floor for questions. If you have something you wish to ask, please raise your hand and one of our attendants will bring you a microphone. For the benefit of those listening online, please speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear your questions clearly. As mentioned previously, if you are online and have a question, please select the Q&A icon and type your question. And once you've finished typing, please hit the send button. So I'll open the floor to questions. We'll start with Mr. Carrick from the Australian Shareholders Association. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Jeff Corrick. I am the proxy holder on behalf of 85 members and supporters of the Australian Shareholders Association. I thank the Executive Chairman, Rob Velletri, and the Joint Company Secretary, Christy Glasgow, for making time to meet me a few weeks ago to discuss some of the issues of concern to retail shareholders. One of these matters was the skills that board members bring to the board and that the board has suitable expertise across all the required skills. In the 3 explanatory memorandum sections supporting re-election of directors, and again from Phil, we had reference made to the board skills matrix, and the re-elected directors will contribute to the mix of skills required, without saying which skills each will contribute to. The association has asked that the company consider attaching the name of each director to the particular skills on this matrix. This would give shareholders the added confidence that all skills are covered, and it would also save shareholders from trying to solve the logic puzzle of matching candidate skills to the matrix. A few other top-listed companies are doing this, and I urge Monadelphous to do the same. The association will vote our undirected proxies in favour of all the resolutions for the incoming directors, as well as the last 2 on the agenda. So I don't need to speak again, I don't think.
All right, thank you, Jeff. We will note that suggestion. Any other questions from anybody present in the room this morning? No? Okay, so now what we will do is move to the questions from our shareholders listening online. And Chris Tabrett, our General Manager of Growth and Strategy, who's sitting at the front with us here, will introduce the online questions. Morning, Chris.
Thanks very much, Phil. Our first question is from Ms. Julie Maguire, inquiring about the level of staff turnover throughout the company, possibly directed to the Managing Director.
I'd answer that by saying that it's obviously a metric that we track. And if I look at our turnover rates and we benchmark those against peers and competitors across industry and the resources sector more broadly, and what we have seen that our turnover rates, whilst high, sit beneath or below what the resources sector and our peers and competitors would see. The other comment I'd make is in the last 9 months, we have seen a consistent reduction in our turnover rates. The turnover rates themselves, I mean, it's a complex discussion because we segregate between staff, blue collar, by location. But my broader comments would be our turnover rates continue to be below that of what we see across the resources sector, and we certainly have seen a downward trend over the last 9 to 12 months.
Thanks, Oren. Possibly another question directed to yourself from Mr. Peter Storer and Mrs. Andrea Storer. Will the recent federal government cuts to infrastructure have any detrimental effect to Monadelphous?
If you look at the markets we operate in, I'd suggest no. One of the challenges that we've seen in terms of capacity-constrained market, in terms of access to labour, arguably we would expect that potentially frees up some labour, core labour, for us to attract back into the resources sector. So no, I don't see that.
Thank you. And final question we received online from Mr. Stephen Main, questioning why the Managing Director is up for election today, as most CEOs access the exemption under the Corporations Act, and further questioning, will the Executive Chair utilise this exemption in future years? Perhaps Rob might respond to that.
I'll take that one. Under the Corporations Act, it is required for a director to be approved at the first annual general meeting. Zoran, in his role as Managing Director, will not require to be approved or renewed, or re-elected rather, every 3 years, as all other directors are. And the second question was around the Executive Chairman. Yes, the Executive Chairman will retire on a 3-year basis and will be required to be re-elected. Again, this is Mr. Velletri's first AGM as not the Managing Director, and that is the reason he is being elected today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. No further questions posted and no verbal questions have been submitted.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so now we will conduct the poll. For those shareholders, representatives of shareholders and proxy holders attending online, please ensure that you have cast your vote on all resolutions using the online voting button. And we will now conduct the poll for the shareholders in the room. At the time of registration, when you arrived at the meeting this morning, those entitled to vote, being shareholders, representatives of shareholders and proxy holders, were given green admission cards. Each shareholder present, either in person or by proxy, has 1 vote per resolution for every share owned. And Rod Soames from Computershare has agreed to act as returning officer for the poll. If you have any questions during the polling process, please raise your hand and a Computershare representative will come over and assist you. If there's anyone who believes they're entitled to vote but is not registered to vote, can you please raise your hand? And if you're here in more than one capacity, for example, on your own and as a proxy for another shareholder, you will have been issued with as many green admission cards as you have separate capacities. On the reverse side of your green admission card is your voting paper and instructions. If you're a proxy holder and have only directed votes, as shown on the summary of votes attached to your admission card, all you need to do is print your name and sign the voting paper, then lodge it in the ballot box. In respect of any open votes a proxy holder may be entitled to cast, you need to mark a box beside the resolution to indicate how you wish to cast your open votes, and shareholders also need to mark a box beside the resolution to indicate how you wish to cast your votes. Please ensure you print your name where indicated and sign the voting paper, and when you have finished filling in your voting paper, please lodge it in one of the ballot boxes being circulated to ensure your votes are counted. If you need any help, please raise your hand. And I will close the voting system in a couple of minutes. Please ensure you have cast your vote on all resolutions, and I will now pause for a couple of moments to allow you time to finalise your votes. Does anyone in the room need any more time to complete and lodge their voting paper, or have we got them all? Okay, all good? So I now declare the poll closed, and the results of the poll will be tallied and published on the ASX later today. Is there any other business today that can be properly brought to the meeting about the management of the company? Mr. Carrick from the ASA.
A question about risk. Yes, a question about risk. I've done not much research, but I think that it's getting much hotter in the Pilbara in particular. We've had 40-degree days in October and in November already this year, which is much above the long-term average. And I wonder if, I know that you've talked about risk in your corporate governance statement, and one of those is looking after people. And I wonder if you're worried that you're not going to be able to work some days because of the heat. It would be the good question.
Can you hear me? Apologies. You're quite right. A lot of our work here in Western Australia is in the Pilbara area and exposed to extreme conditions and temperatures. I mean, we have heat stress plans in place and fatigue management plans, and we also need to ensure we fall in line with our client requirements. So I'm confident that we have embedded in the way we work and our clients' expectations and processes and procedures cater for those requirements to ensure that we can continue to operate safely and look after the health and well-being of our people.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no other business, I declare the meeting closed. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Chair, the Board and everyone at Monadelphous to thank you all, including our very special guests, for your attendance today and for your continued support of our company. And that ends today's formalities. For those online, thank you for joining us, and for those in the room, please join us for some light refreshments in the foyer. Thank you.